With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give the fan favorite everywhere belt bag, the real gift is... And when the ultra-soothing Rest Feel slides are the gift, you're really giving them... This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give little luxuries that go beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Hillel Fuld is in Israel this morning. We had the opportunity to sit with Hillel. He was on our show at Ariel University. Anytime we go to Israel, he's on because he's great. He's one of our good buddies there. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. In Israel, it's almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. How are you, Hillel?
How you doing, my man? It's great to hear from you. And I got to tell you, you are crushing it lately. I'm watching from the sidelines, meeting the biggest celebrities out there, Gabe Groisman, Hadassah Goldberg, and the Jerusalem Post recognition. Man, it's amazing to watch.
Thank you. Yes, we did have Gabe Groisman with Tila Falik, a huge name, of course, across Israel, in studio yesterday, and Hadassah will be in studio today. She loves you. You know, I reached out to you because I follow you on social media. I believe you're the best. It's a big deal, I'm going to say. You're the best social media follow in all of Israel. And you put up something yesterday showing this raging fire, and it was in central Israel. And you said, oh, my God, basically, I can't believe I'm seeing this, right? This is not Gaza. This is not north up in Lebanon. Central Israel, a raging fire. And you also said something like, enough is enough. Time to take the gloves off, Bibi, and let's finish this. Tell me and the audience exactly what you were talking about.
So what's happening right now is that there's advanced negotiations, for a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, and Hezbollah is really trying to take advantage of that and trying to get some small wins in before. And so it did yesterday what it has not done in this war, and that is fire a ballistic missile into central Israel. Somehow the missile, it was detonated, but the shrapnel landed in central Israel by Ramat Gan, right next to Tel Aviv. And so you understand what we're talking about here. We're talking about tens of kilos of explosives. So when we talk about shrapnel, it's not like some little piece. It's a massive, piece of a missile that landed. And as you said, it started a massive fire. And I'm looking at scenes from middle of Tel Aviv area, and there's this fire and a direct hit on a building, and it's just wild to see. Now, I wouldn't want to be in Netanyahu's shoes right now, both diplomatically and militarily, because it's not an easy place to be. But I think it's time for us to realize that this is, we got to do what we got to do and use any and all resources we have at our disposal. Enough with the, trying to take out this terrorist and that terrorist. Lebanon is harboring Hezbollah on their soil, and it's time we call it what it is. This is a terror state, much like Gaza, and so I think we need to handle it as such.
It's not the first time, though. I remember it was, I had just spent the week in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the RNC, when Donald Trump, who is now the president-elect, accepted the nomination for president. And the next day, Friday morning in Wisconsin, I couldn't get home because of some hacking or some computer glitch. But I remember talking to my dear friend Emily Austin that morning because she had left Wisconsin, gone to Israel. She was staying in Tel Aviv, and a drone had hit a building, killed somebody right there. And I got to tell you, Hillel, when I saw you in Israel just last month, people were getting hit and bombs were landing, or rockets, I should say, in Tel Aviv as well. So what you saw yesterday, really nothing new. For months now, they've been sending rockets towards occupied territories.
Well, first of all, it's important to differentiate between a rocket and a ballistic missile. I mean, what was fired last night was a massive ballistic missile, provided obviously by Iran. But also worth noting that 60 to 70% of the rockets and missiles and weapons that the IDF discovered in Lebanon, 60 to 70% of them actually came from Russia, which is a whole different discussion. But, it was really an escalation. When you shoot a ballistic missile into Tel Aviv, it's a whole different level. It's true that they've been trying, but last night, from their perspective, was a big success, even though I can't not, talk about the fact that we saw that fire and we saw, all the damage, and yet there were no casualties. And, I think there was one woman who was severely injured, not critical, which is, as an observant Jew, I can't help but see God in that. It's unbelievable to watch how, Hezbollah is firing, 10,000 rockets over the last year in Israel. We're talking about, casualties, 57, I think is the number that I heard last, which, again, don't get me wrong, every single casualty is an entire world and a tragedy. But in historical perspective, in 100 years from now, we're going to look back and say they fired 10,000 rockets and only 57 people were killed. This is miraculous stuff happening right before our eyes. Yeah,
there's no question Hashem is playing a part in saving our people. This is the great Hillel Fuld live in Israel this morning. And, they've now taken me to Israel twice, and I've seen you both times. The One Israel Fund, my good friend Scott Feltman, that whole crew. And you know all those folks very well up in Judea and Samaria, from Eve Harrell, who's terrific, to Mike Provisor, all those guys, Mark Provisor. So they want me to go back again in April. They basically want me to go twice a year and be the American envoy ambassador to Israel. And we've got a huge gala coming up on December the 19th here in New York City. In fact, they're going to honor me and Danielle and Hadassah that night, and Mike Rappaport is hosting, and, your buddy there, Nate Buzz, the actor, he's going to be there that night. Going to be a huge event. But what do you think, Hillel, about the possibility, thanks to One Israel Fund, of Sid Rosenberg going to Israel twice every year?
Man, I'd love you to just stay here. What are you talking about? It's amazing. I love being here. And honestly, I don't know. Sometimes you don't realize the impact that you have. But I got to tell you, I know you're the most listened to radio station in New York City. But I actually think it's something else. I think you're the only, I don't know a single person who listens to the radio unless they're listening to Sid and Friends. So you have a tremendous platform. And the fact that you're using it, to stand by us in this existential war is something that I know I don't take for granted. And I think anyone who knows you doesn't take it for granted. So, to hear that you're coming back makes me very happy.
Thank you, Hillel. You mentioned Bibi before. You wouldn't want his job. And I know most folks don't know this, but he's got a bunch of residents, you know this, in Jerusalem, and they keep sending drones trying to bomb him, and I believe they may have hit 2 of his residences over the last couple of weeks. I think that's what Tila told me yesterday. So he's been kind of underground here the last couple of weeks. You haven't seen or heard much from Bibi because we're not even sure at this point if it's Hezbollah or Israelis, his own people, Hillel, that are out to get him. We're not sure at this point, but he's kind of running and hiding right now, and I know you know about that, yes?
Well, first of all, let's just to be accurate. He's not hiding. He yesterday actually gave a press conference, or I think it was actually in a government meeting, where he talked about how everything went down with the Biden administration over the past year or so, and how the Biden administration has really threatened him and told him if he goes into Rafah, there's no more weapons. And he opened up and he told everyone what went down. And it's to hear it from his mouth is actually infuriating to hear what the Biden administration has done to Israel during this war. So he's not in hiding, but it's true that on 2 separate instances his residence in Caesarea was hit. And it's true that one of those was unbelievable, but hit by it wasn't intended to kill anyone. It was like a light, whatever it's called, a light bomb, but it was actually Israelis who did it, as part of their protest, which, by the way, is worth mentioning, evolves every few months, right? It was the judicial reform, then it was the hostages, now it's the fact that he fired the defense minister. He can do no right. And so, this was them protesting against him, obviously not the same as Hezbollah actually firing at his residence. But it's scary times, man. Scary times.
I wanted to ask you about Trump's choice for the ambassador to Israel, and I know you're close with David Friedman. Him and I are very close. We talked just about every day the last 2 weeks, and I think in my heart he really believed he was getting that job back. Now Trump decided to go with Mike Huckabee, who sent me a very nice text yesterday. He saw the article in the Jerusalem Post and congratulated me, and I've known Mike Huckabee for years, and I love him. He was a governor of Arkansas. Now his daughter, who's terrific, is a governor of Arkansas. But that choice to go with Huckabee instead of Friedman, you're in Israel, Hillel. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, on a personal level, I absolutely love David and Tammy. They're close friends. They're amazing people, and they were historic when it comes to what they did for Israel, and that stands alone. Mike Huckabee, I have a history with in a good way, because after Ari was murdered, he posted about it and he praised him on Twitter, and he met with him when he was in Israel. And so, I love the guy on a personal level, but it's important to mention the moral clarity that this guy has. And, I actually don't think I know many people that with that level of moral clarity besides you and him. And how does that manifest? It manifests in one very simple way. And that is that you guys refuse to buy into the false narratives. You're not using the terminology that the world wants you to use, such as the West Bank, right? Why do they call it the West Bank? Because they don't want to use the word Judea. Because if they use the word Judea, then they have to admit that Jews are indigenous to this land. And so they call it the West Bank. But you don't fall for that crap. And neither does Mike Huckabee. He calls it Judea and Samaria. He doesn't call them settlements. He calls them communities, because that's what they are. Right. And so it's amazing and refreshing to hear such moral clarity, especially from someone who's going to have such an important role.
You know, on the way out, Hillel, you mentioned your brother Ari, and you've been on a bunch of times. My audience knows the story. He was tragically murdered, but what a hero he was. And you've done such an amazing job. Let me give you credit. You've done such an amazing job. He must be so proud of you, looking down at you every day. Since he died, you've become one of the biggest, strongest voices in Israel. But you're also a social media genius. And you said to me, I would love to sit down with President Trump one day and actually show him what he can and can't do with social media to make his presidency even bigger. And you weren't kidding. You'd love that opportunity to sit down with President Trump, and you think you can help, yes?
I mean, listen, obviously, as I mentioned, I'm super close with David. Jared and I have spoken a few times. He follows me on X, and so there's all kinds of inroads into the next administration. But Trump has done incredible things in terms of his campaign and all the McDonald's and the garbage truck. He's done a lot of great things in terms of using this thing we call social media. But much like the state of Israel, actually, I think now's the time to use like real professionals. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about people that have really moved the needle for the largest brands in the world using social media. And I think, by the way, the state of Israel, as much as I love my state and my people, when it comes to the PR world and how to use social media, it's a colossal failure. And that's because we don't take it seriously. We don't understand that we need to, leverage real professionals to change the narrative and, all the rhetoric around Israel. And that's why we're failing miserably. Now, with Trump, it's a little different because, again, he has surrounded himself with amazing people in terms of social media. But I think he hasn't scratched the surface. I think, once he enters office, I think it's time to sit down and have a discussion about how to truly capitalize on these platforms and, use the biggest megaphone the world has ever known.
I agree with you, and I will do my best to make that happen. I really will, because I think it'd be a huge asset to President Trump. So on the way out, there you are. You just yesterday on social media pointed out raging fire, ballistic missile right there by Tel Aviv. So certainly there is still a raging war on three fronts going on in Israel. And let's not forget, there's still over 100 hostages we have not gotten back, dead or alive. There's a lot going on. Are you confident, like I am and many other Trump supporters are, that with him taking over now, that some of these hostages will be coming home and that the war will come to an end sooner than later?
Well, it's a very complex thing. First of all, it's not three fronts. It's actually 7 fronts. We're literally fighting 7 fronts right now between, Syria and Yemen and obviously Gaza and then Judea and Samaria. The list is obviously very, very long. It's 7 fronts and potentially an 8th front opening up now with Hamas hiding in Turkey, Turkey cutting all diplomatic ties with Israel. If Israel, takes out a Hamas leader on Turkish soil, that might very well be, the declaration of war, and obviously Turkey is a member of NATO, so this thing should heat up pretty quickly. That being said, I think people realize what's going to happen on day one when Trump enters office, not only as it pertains to Israel, but as it pertains to anti-Semitism and college campuses and everything else to do with the woke culture, etc. And so I think Trump's definitely going to flex his muscles when he gets into office in terms of getting those hostages back and hopefully not, making us end the war prematurely, because we do need to win this war and remove all threats from our borders. And if we don't get those hostages back and remove those threats, then that will be the first war Israel has ever lost. And I don't believe that's what Trump wants. So I believe he'll let Israel do what we need to do. That being said, I have no doubt that he will apply unprecedented, unparalleled pressure to release those hostages, and I hope he'll be successful.
You are a great guest, an even better guy. Thank you once again. Every time you come on, Hillel, you hit a grand slam home run. So be safe there in Israel. Hopefully I'm going to see you very, very soon, but we'll talk very often. Hillel Fuld, great job. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Always keep crushing it, man. You're doing amazing work.
Look who's talking. Thank you so much. There he is, our dear friend. He really is terrific. Hillel Fuld, live in Israel this morning.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.